Hey guys, and welcome back to another Warcraft video. This time we're going to be talking about what my top raids are in the game. It's mostly a list of top 5s. I'm going to be talking about my top 5 raids by mechanics, then my top 5 by aesthetic, and finally I'm going to round it off with the top 4 raids. Now, why am I doing top 4? Well, I feel that for something I'm going to put in the very, very top of my overall favourite list, it can't be something that I haven't raided, right? And while there are some great things in Burning Crusade and in Vanilla and stuff like that, I can't really put them there, and I can only really find 4 to stick on that list, and that made sense. So, let's kick off this list with mechanics. Really, at the end of the day, what matters the most in a raid is the mechanics. Is the damn thing fun? So, since the Burning Crusade things have got a lot more complicated in terms of fight mechanics. Now, I have not played through those places at the necessary level for years, so I can't really talk about Burning Crusade stuff without nostalgia, basically just ruining things in terms of mechanics. Now, with Wrath of the Lich King, things did start to get a little bit more mechanically more interesting and complex, and Blizzard have actually said that currently the game is, at the highest level, more difficult than it was back then. I know people are always talking about how, the ultra hardcore only X percentage got to, say, Sunwell. And yeah, that was all true, but what Blizzard are actually saying now is the number of attempts that it's been taking to kill these heroic bosses has been going up and up and up. So really, I think raids have, in many ways, in terms of mechanics, been getting better and better, bar 1 or 2 really great examples from Wrath, in my opinion, and things are really just going in a very good direction. Now, I did not raid Firelands, and I did not raid End Time at the appropriate time. That said, from what I've done of End Time, I don't think it would make it in this list, not even close. It was a heap of crap, in my opinion, at least from what I had seen of the place and what the rest of my guild had said. It also seemed like it was ridiculously easy, but I digress. Let's get on to the actual list. Coming in at number 5, we have Blackwing Descent. Now this is, I'm going to do a spoiler here, this is the only Cataclysm place I'm going to throw in here. I feel like, though, if I had have raided Firelands, which I didn't, that Firelands actually would have been in this spot. So yeah, I did actually raid most of this stuff up to the final boss. I ended up taking a break from the game because it just wasn't really interesting to me, and I had crazy amounts of exams and things. And while the game itself wasn't really interesting to me, I actually loved this raid. It was really just time commitment screwing things up. I enjoyed essentially every single fight. They all felt very unique and very different. Magma was very fun to me. In the main phase, I like that whole mechanic of moving around the different pillars of flame and taking out all the different adds. And as a hunter, this was fun because I got to use my frost trap, one of the few times we get to use that. Then in phase 2, I really enjoyed the whole burn phase. I actually think just in general for fight mechanics, having a really stress phase of heavy mechanics and things is fine, but it's really nice to have that countered off with a nice burn phase where you can just sit there, you can save your cooldowns or whatever, and just blow out the damage. I think that feels great, and it's a hell of a lot of fun. You really do feel good when you've done a lot of damage, and it's a great break in pace. Next, we have the Omnitron defense system. This thing was bloody mental. The 4 bosses, all their different abilities, and the random order of the constructs meant that, for me anyway, it was very fun and there were some tense combinations. The various buffs and debuffs from the bosses meant that people needed to know what they were doing and be kind of wary of position. Arcanatron, whatever he was called, his little power generation puddle pull was fun because you had to... Sometimes there'd be a bit of a risk to going to it, but there was nice benefit, so there was some fun decision making there. And then in general, I usually enjoy having some sort of DPS boost that I can stand in, because I'm a scumbag hunter and all I really care about is those numbers. Next we have Maloriak, and I really enjoyed this boss. I thought the red phase was cool with the whole, the mix of adds, and then the breath that had it was the damage soak, or the damage was spread amongst everyone instead of just hitting everyone for the same amount. That made no sense. The damage was soaked by everybody instead of just, say, wiping the tank. I thought that was fun. Then you moved into the blue phase and everyone needed to spread out and you could be whacked to the ice block. People would need to take that out. And there were some scary moments when, say, there was a bit of damage coming in. Maybe the healer was ice blocked. And I just think that led to fun gameplay. Then finally the green phase was great with bashing down all those adds. And one of the nice things about this fight is that managing the amount of adds actually required a decent bit of strategy and some good execution. So I thought it was really nice. You had a bit of a choice in how you approach that. And I guess it was just rewarding, really. and when you pull that one off. Next we have Antramides. This was an amazing boss in my opinion. I think the sound mechanic was really cool, and it was nice having some personal responsibility when it came to managing your sound level. He would do this ability where he'd just fire off these little discs at you, and that was fun to me. Sonic Breath was also very cool, and there was a decent feeling of success when you handled that well, and you made it so that other raid members didn't hit. Then again, it was also kind of hilarious when you maybe dragged the fire through like 4 other people and got everyone murdered, but I never did that because I'm totally too good. Yeah. And then Searing Flames. Searing Flames was bloody scary. If that interrupt with the drum didn't go off, you were screwed. That was fun. And then I guess the flying phase wasn't too interesting to me. Then finally we have Chimeron. This is a pretty fun fight. I don't remember a crazy amount of it, but what I do remember is the end of it. And it was me and another hunter. We were ping-ponging the boss back and forth when nearly everyone else was died. Only to have us both die, and then the shaman killed the boss with his last spell before he got killed. It was a hell of a close first kill, and it was definitely a memorable thing. Next we have Throne of Thunder, and I'm not going to go into this in as much detail because you probably do know all the bosses. Basically, I think the Jinrock was a perfect intro boss. He wasn't too hard, he wasn't too easy, and he had really fun mechanics. So it was a nice little introduction. Also, the whole damage pool thing, as I said earlier, I thought that was a bit of fun, but I loved how they twisted it on its head a little bit and had it so that if you stayed in the damage pool for too long, it gets electrified, then it kills you. I thought that was great. Honestly, I thought that Hordon was kind of boring, and the difficulty spike on 10-player normal was just far too much, to the point where some of those ads actually didn't have the correct amount of health. So after the nerf, I thought it was fine, but as a boss in general, it's okay. When you outgear it, it really is boring if you do it right. That said, if you outgear it enough, then you can just cheese the fight and kill Hordon on the 2nd or 3rd gate, which is kind of fun. It's definitely a bit risky with all the trash. But yeah, Hordon, whatever. And now next, Council. I actually really did enjoy this fight after the 10-player nerf. Before that, the health levels were wrong, and basically there were some major tuning issues with 10-player Throne of Thunder, but they did fix that. Anyway, after the nerf, I thought it was fun because the boss had a lot of varied mechanics with the four different mobs, and it required some good communication and teamwork. The sand traps were damn scary, and each guy felt pretty different, and overall I just thought it came together to make a nice little cohesive and fun fight. Next we have Tortos, and I enjoyed this fight because I got to kick turtles, which was fun, and then the other times I was on this fight, I was just sitting there DPSing things, herp-derping, getting really big numbers. It was fun. I don't think the healers and casters really liked this though, because they were getting knocked up all over the place. Yeah, that's misspeaking, and they kept on getting interrupted by the turtles, and I think that was definitely a problem because it interrupted people's gameplay in a way that wasn't fun. Next, Megara was pretty dull to me, and the Angry Chicken was kind of fun when you got to jump around all the different platforms and things like that, and you get the flying buff, and then you could use the flying buff to jump up and catch the slime in midair, which would give you a damage increase, which is kind of cool. Next, yes, we have Duramu. Now, this was a great fight once you got the grasp of the maze. There was definitely an issue with the maze, at least initially, where spell effects were completely wrong. And anyway, after we all got that sorted out, I really liked how the fight played out. I thought its different phases were all kind of different and fun, and I thought it was especially tense when you had the life drain mechanic in combination with all the different, cones of light. And you could have people being, life drained inside a cone, and various things like that. I thought that was really cool. So yeah, Duramu, you get a pass from me. Next we have Primordius. Now I love this fight, and I thought it was fast, visceral, and a ton of fun, and I also got some high numbers because of just the way things were, so it was great. Now the way we did this is all the DPS would spread around in a circle in a room, and then all three, we would all just start killing the slimes, and once every single DPS was transformed, you just go mad, start burning the crap out of Primordius, and that's when the tank starts dragging Primordius around the room. And whatever way this all played together, I just thought it was really fun. Also, the different mechanics that Primordius got as he absorbed more slimes, I thought they were kind of interesting when you got, say, the big thing where you explode, it does a lot of damage, you need to let your healer know. It was a fun thing to be doing in VoIP, actually. Next, we have Iron Quan. This, to me, was actually quite fun and heroic, but I did think it was a little bit dull and normal. And then Consorts, I think this was plain boring and a terrible second last boss, which does sound weird having it being in my actually inside my top 5. But yeah, I think Consorts and Horadon could have been swapped, really. Also, Consorts was just too damn easy. Next, we have Lei Shen, and there was a ton of individual responsibility in this guy when it came to dealing with things like, say, Static Shock. I was a hunter, by the way, so I just would Deterrence cheese through it. Then there's the blue circle thingy in the floor, Overcharge, various mechanics like that, actually standing in the things that drop from the sky. I thought that was all fun, and it's nice to have a sort of a smuttering of individual responsibility throughout the fight, because then you actually... There's a bit more payoff when you do things correctly in terms of gameplay. As a hunter, the way you could use deterrence was definitely kind of nice. I like it when sometimes a certain class is able to, I guess, cheese a mechanic because of their class ability. It does add to class differentiation and it makes it a little bit more fun. The stuff with the towers was also cool, managing like just the different levels and energy levels of the towers. That was fun. I know our tanks had quite a good bit of enjoyment actually, just figuring out the right times to taunt and move about the place. That was cool. And then finally, managing the intermission and how you split up the groups was kind of interesting to me as well. I think we went with the 4-4-1-1 split for 10-player. Anyway, coming in at number 3, we have Icecrown Citadel. I just really liked the mechanics of this place. I know they're maybe not as complex as, say, a post-Cataclysm raid, but I just enjoyed them. So first of all, we have Lord Marogar, and this guy was just a ton of fun to me. Simple, but still with mechanics that needed to be followed. It was a great intro boss, in my opinion. Next we have Death Whisperer, and she was okay. At heavy fights like this, they usually don't appeal to me in most cases. But I guess the second phase was kind of okay, and yeah, Death Whisperer, just meh. The gunship battle, in my opinion, was brilliantly paced. It was a nice little break from the other fights. And yeah, you got to go on a gunship with jetpacks and blow things up. So I don't think there's anything at all fallible with it. Next we have Sourfang. This was great, and as a hunter on a 10-player group, I had a lot of responsibility with managing my own Blood Beast, especially on heroic mode. So for me, personally, I really enjoyed that fight, because dealing with those Blood Beasts was stressful, because I was doing that at the gear level where I really needed to pay perfect attention, swap instantly, do all that stuff perfectly, and make sure, because back then hunters had mana, make sure I was at full mana for whenever or not full, but I had enough mana to do abilities to full damage when the Blood Beasts arrived, and it was just kind of cool to me. Next we have Festergut, and this was a patchwork fight, and I'm a DPS, so I just had a ton of fun. Maybe the healers were bored, maybe the tanks were bored, probably both true. But still, as a DPS, I think it's okay just to have one of your 12 bosses be a little bit of a patchwork fight, because sometimes it's a nice break in pacing. Pacing's very important, and I think that as we've went forward with some of these raids, like Siege of Orgrimmar, it's just been mechanics. Sometimes it's okay to have a gunship, or a Festergut, or something that's just a break in pace. So then we have Rotface. This guy was pretty fun. I don't remember the exact specifics of the fight perfectly. It's been a while, obviously. But yeah, managing the different slimes and when to merge them was fun. Kiting them around the place. I thought that was a pretty solid fight. Next we have Putricide, and this was a great fight in my opinion. Once again, the slime management was kind of good, and the fact that you really had to kill some of those slimes fast and everyone had to jump onto them and burn them, that was cool. You definitely felt like you had an individual role, and you yourself could make or break your group when it came to that. Also, once you reached the final phase and the room started to fill up with whatever the hell was on the floor, it was really intense, because the room was literally filling up with things that would kill you. You needed to kill that boss quickly. There was a lot of tension, and it was very memorable. Then we have the Blood Elf Princes. Honestly, there's so many mechanics and things in this fight, I just can't remember it. Although I do remember finding it just a little bit kind of hassly for my liking, which I suppose is a pity. Next we have Blood Queen Lanathel. This was a fun fight to me, I really enjoyed it. It was simple enough, yes, but I think it just had one of those combinations of mechanics that came off being very fun. I enjoyed it, the whole vampirism thing, the other, like the kind of link between the two players and you having to run to the other person to make sure you basically didn't die. I thought that was really cool. Then we had the Green Dragon Lady, who was of absolutely no interest to me. Honestly, I don't even think the healers enjoyed it that much. But thankfully, we got through this quickly every week with no real interruption, so it was fine. Then we have, it's not Sartharian, Syndragosa, that was it. I thought this was a hell of a good fight. I loved the whole hiding behind the ice blocks and timing all that stuff well and making sure it was well managed. I thought that was a hell of a lot of fun, and I really just have great memories from this fight, and the main reason for that is because we spent 2 weeks wiping on this boss. And maybe this was just because of some ADC in our group, maybe it wasn't that hard, but when we finally got that kill, it felt great. This was the first boss where our raid team really, where we got stuck for a while. So to be there, my very first experience in properly, hardcore raiding, not hardcore, but it was one of my first times really just going in a proper stint of a few months of raiding, and this was just such a memorable moment, finally getting that kill and everyone lining up for the kill shot. It was great. Next, we have the Lich King. This is my favorite lore character and one of my favorite boss fights. In Phase 1, things start to get really tense and crazy. After Phase 1. Defile is probably the most terrifying thing in the history of the universe. I also enjoyed the Valkyrie mechanic a lot. I guess Phase 1 was pretty okay. It's where you were passing around that debuff. It was kind of nice when you passed around the debuff and it all worked out perfectly, but sometimes it just didn't translate into a lot of fun gameplay. Still though, the intermission phases were fun, the Valkyrie phase was fun, the final phase was fun, and I was happy with it all. The voice acting was a little bit cheesy, but I actually think it was well delivered and a complete ton of fun. Little cool bit of trivia. The, Tyrion Fordring is actually voiced by Bernard Hill, who was the actor who played Theoden in Lord of the Rings. I only found that out a week ago, but that probably explains why I thought he sounded cool. Anyway, next we have the Siege of Orgrimmar. I'm not going to go into this in much detail again, but I think that nearly every boss here is mechanically interesting. Personally, my favourite bosses have been Nurishen, in which I enjoyed the kind of burning at the end. Shav Pride, in which I just think the mechanics came together to make something that was really fun, and then of course the burning, and I like it when you get to a certain point in the fight, gets a bit harder. I thought that was great in the Shav Pride. Then we have Galakras. I was basically the leader of the tower teams for our first few kills of this, and it was nice. It was one of those fights where I really think that I personally, after, having done my LFR guides and my flex guides and done a good bit of research, I personally felt like I helped my team out with organizing that kill, so that's why it really was a memorable fight to me. Then we skip on a little bit to Malkorok, who I just thought he was simple, he wasn't massively hard, but I think he was fun the way it worked out. And then finally Siegecrafter Blackfuse, in which there was crazy shit going on everywhere, and I just enjoyed the hell out of it. Unfortunately, due to university and then YouTube commitments, I had to drop out near the end of the tier, so I actually have not fought Garrosh yet on anything other than LFR. I basically got up to a few attempts on Blackfuse, and never actually got to finally kill him. Of course, I did actually kill him on the PTR and stuff like that, so I can still say, great fight, love him. Although, unfortunately, our team actually hasn't killed Garrosh yet. I don't know, I think a few of the top DPSers had to leave and things like that, so not really too sure how things are going for them at the minute. I'll probably jump back in and hopefully we'll be able to get that killed before I need to go back to university. Anyway, we're on to number 1, guys. So, number 1 is Ulduar. This is brilliant in my opinion. The fights all felt really, really unique, and to me it was to everyone, it was an introduction of heroic modes in the game, bar one or two instances such as the Royal Family in Anchorage 40. So, sure, Flame Leviathan was a bit of a gimmick, but I actually thought he was quite a fun gimmick at that. Then after him, every single boss felt very, very unique. With things like, say, XT Hard Mode and Mimiron standing out to me as being kind of wacky and fun. I really like that. The Keeper fights themselves, they felt really different to me, and I loved how their areas were also different. The man mechanics in the the second to last boss, the big, faceless guy, I thought they were really crazy and a hell of a lot of fun. That said, when you're going back and doing that place for achievements with your guild or whatever, it can be a bit of a pain in the arse when all the healers start dying and stuff because they can't do anything. Anyway, then finally, I loved Yogg-Saron. There was tentacles everywhere, he was hard, mechanically complex, and the ability to choose between the different difficulty levels via the number of keepers was very cool as well. Lore-wise, I also love the guy. So yeah, that is the top 5 by mechanics. Now, mechanics are not everything. I kinda like things that look pretty and have nice music, so now it's time to go into the top fights by aesthetic. So, I'm actually going to have 6 here. Just number 6 is more of a mention, really. Generic fantasy-style places. World of Warcraft does have its fair share of just generic fantasy, and I think it pulls it off quite well. Personally, though, I do prefer it when World of Warcraft steps out a bit. Number 5 is the Terrace of the Endless Spring. This probably sounds a little bit far out, But the reason I like this is because I really am a sucker for that Chinese aesthetic. Especially, this is one of the things that I like the most. This specific raid, that is. Overall, I just thought it was really, really, really pretty. And I was actually thinking of putting Mogashan Vaults in this place, but really, I kind of got tired of the terracotta army-style aesthetic, even at the point where the final boss of that place was basically a terracotta army being built. And yeah, I just wasn't so hot on that, and then Heart of Fear I didn't like. Throne of Thunder I actually thought was it was okay, it was just a bit too trollish for me, and then it moved into, once again, the Terracotta Army sort of thing. So yeah, not so much a fan of the Throne of Thunder aesthetic-wise. Siege for Orgrimmar is just generic fantasy / Orgrimmar, so not really so much an aesthetic fan of that. But yeah, just that whole Chinese style, I think it's great. The music was also quite nice as well. And I didn't put those bosses on my mechanical top 5 list, but I actually really enjoyed most of them, apart from the Shah of Fear, whatever the hell that Shah was. That's got to be one of the most boring boss fights I've seen. I can't believe Number 4 is the Black Temple. I think this place looks really cool, and I especially like how they captured the fact that it was this fallen place, the Temple of Karabor, but just how it's been so twisted and corrupted by demons and that sort of thing. Then just the entire black and green motif. I just thought it felt really kind of looming and very evil. It definitely, the landscape of it definitely communicated its corrupted nature, which I thought was really cool. Also, the whole green thing, like that just color theme running throughout of the fell corruption, and then how you sort of see that in Illidan, I just thought it was overall very cool. Then the bosses themselves, I thought a lot of them looked quite cool as well. Illidan, of course, when he turns into his demon form, looks brilliant. There's the big, ginormous infernal guy, the Reliquary, Gore Fiend. I just think all these guys were, well, they certainly weren't lookers, but they were pretty to look at, if you know what I mean. Anyway, that's number 4 covered. Let's move on to really the meat of the list. Number 3, 2, and 1. And number 3, we have Ulduar. I bloody love the Titans. They have this fantastic sense of grandeur, and that's backed up by the zone. It's got great music that's really just so atmospheric and great to me. And then also just the sheer scale of the raid itself. Ulduar was designed for beings far greater than us, far larger than us, and it really felt like that. We felt like tiny ants, completely outgunned and outnumbered and out-everythinged, I suppose. And it really just feel like we were tiny in this great, giant, expansive area. And I think this just did a great job of emphasizing the feeling of vulnerability to players. You just felt so outmatched by the massive foes that you faced in this massive keep. And I think this really added to the feeling of accomplishment when you got kills, and just the overall sort of tone and feeling. You really did feel like such an explorer, which I suppose is funny because Bronzebeard was the main NPC in the place. And then there's also a staggering amount of detail to the place. Every single boss zone felt really unique and was very fitting to the boss. Like Freya had the Conservatory of Life, Hodir had the Halls of Winter, Thorm had the Clash of Thunder, or whatever it was called, and then Mimiron had the Spark of Imagination, and then, say, maybe Ignis with the Colossal Forge. These places were all just so well tied into the aesthetic and the lore of each individual boss that it just emphasized that this was a very old place, and these Watchers were very old. It made it feel very rich, and once again, as I mentioned earlier, just added to the feeling of being an explorer. Then there's also the bosses themselves. I think that all these Titan Watchers, they looked different, and they looked fantastic. They were these massive, powerful-looking beings, which is always great in a boss fight. They're also pretty varied, and they really did feel like their own individual characters. Then for the Titans themselves, I think Blizzard, just the Titans in general, Blizzard do a great job of making them feel like constructs or like giant living machines. This makes them feel very alien and very detached, coupled with the way that they nearly seem like they're programmed. I just think that's really cool. And then of course we have the final 2 bosses and the freaking Old Gods. I think the Old Gods are really cool. H.P. Lovecraft was a man with a absolutely fantastic mind. Things like the Necronomicon are very interesting reads. I suppose maybe some of you won't know this, but the Old Gods are actually based off the old ones from an American horror writer, I think back in the 1920s. So you have, say, I think it's Yog-Sothoth, and then Yog-Saron. You have Cthulhu Cthulhu in World of Warcraft. And I think that Yog-Saron in specific was fantastic. First of all, he just looked... I know some people could say, oh, he looked a bit fucking weird, just stupid. But no, I think that really he just actually kind of looked a little bit terrifying. Maybe not in his in-game representation, but actually look at the art for Yogg-Saron. And that in combination with how small that us players felt, it was really like he was this giant sort of thing that would just destroy you. God of Death, he felt like a God of Death. Then even the aesthetic of the fight where you're going into his brain and all the different tentacles, and then also the voice acting. I'd actually very much recommend that you just go into YouTube and you type in Yogg-Saron voice acting, or you type in Cthulhu voice acting, because I think it's really damn creepy and pretty good. So, next, number 2, we have Icecrown Citadel. First off, we have the architecture of the place. It's massive and it's tall. It just has this feeling of this kind of like dark and evil grandeur. It's also very oppressive because of its height, and gave the players a great feeling of progression as we worked our way through the bosses up to the top. There was also a lot of spikes and gratuitous things and that sort of stuff. And I know that I say this about nearly every, like, you could say that about nearly every raid with the spikes and gratuitous things, but I think that it really did fit the whole place. The Lich King was a total dick. He tortured things and then he killed them, and his house said that. So yeah, we kind of knew he was a dick before we even met the damn guy. Hell, even the ceilings and the bloody walls in the place felt cold and isolating with that kind of dark Saronite-style blue. I know that some people perhaps had an issue with there being a lot of blue. I don't have a problem with that. It's kind of one of my favorite colors, more in that it doesn't hurt eyes. I don't know, I like blue. Blue's a cool color. You stay classy, blue. So yeah, aesthetic-wise, it was great. Hell, even I think the floor had this kind of skeleton pattern on it, which was kind of cool as well. And then we actually move into the bosses. You had very distinct aesthetic themes. Maybe not for the first wing and the last one, but certainly the Plague Wing felt kind of different to the Hall of Blood and stuff like that. Another great thing, I don't know if this fits into aesthetic, but the whole linearity issue. Icecrown Citadel had a nice bit of non-linearity where you could choose between the different places you went to after the initial 3 or 4 bosses, so I thought that was really cool. Then also, voice acting. Now, this is definitely a very large part of why I like the place. The writing is par of the course. I really do get sad at sometimes how Blizzard, maybe they just kind of get really phoned in performances from their voice actors, or the dialogue itself isn't spectacularly written. But I did actually like the whole Tyrion and Arthas thing. I just said Arceus. No, that's not what he was called. I think that the reverb and all the different effects in Arthas' voice just made him feel really menacing and evil, which of course he was, and that worked quite well. And then Tyrion, I just think he sounded fantastic. Basically, thank you, Bernard Hill. You came in and did a great job. I think that was a really good use of that actor, actually. I found out that, what's his name? Bronze Dragon, Morazon / Norse Dumu, in the end time, was actually voiced by Martin Sheen. What a waste of Martin. I really don't think that that his voice was just deep enough for the role. Don't get me wrong though. Like in say Mass Effect, I love Martin Sheen, great guy. Just perhaps maybe he wasn't the best use of something for that particular raid tier. Anyway, overall, I think this is a great place. And then we have number 1. And this is one that might surprise some people, but it's Sunwell Plateau and the Isle of Kel'Danas. I don't have a massive amount to actually say about these, other than I just think the aesthetic of the raid is just goddamn beautiful. The same can be said for the Isle of Kel'Danas itself. The disparity between the natural beauty of the area, the fantastic Blood Elf architecture, and that sort of thing, with the demonic corruption of the place. I just thought that was really cool, and I'm kind of a bit sad that we're not going to see any more places like this, especially at a higher texture resolution, because really, all the Blood Elf lore has been dealt with. So yeah, Sunwell Plateau, you're absolutely great. I'm not too sure why specifically, but I think the trees themselves, even just the trees in that whole zone and area, I thought they looked really cool. Just the sort of the color of them all. I don't know, I really liked you, Sunwell Plateau. Anyway, overall, what are my top raids? So one thing I need to say beforehand. This entire list has been personal opinion, things like that. I am really not going to be going through things in a completely objective manner, because honestly, it's impossible for a human to do a top 10 list which is objective. If you wanted to get an objective list, you would ask maybe the top 10s of, say, 2 million people, and then just compile it. That's how you get your top 10 of everything or whatever. And this is my top 10 overall, my top 4 overall raids, and these are only raids that I have completely played through and raided in. So because of that, it's only 4. And coming in at number 4, we have Throne of Thunder. It won't be there in many people's list, but it was my first full raid since returning from Cataclysm. I started to do pretty well here, and overall, I just had a great time. We also had a really nice, stable, fun raid team for the most part, and that really did help with things. And, yeah, there's just something fun about getting, like, heroic kills with the crazy comps we had because of our team, where it was, like, 3 hunters, 2 priests, 2 monks, and a paladin. Stuff that just made no sense, but it was damn fun. And, then, of course, actually just mechanically, I thought a lot of these bosses were quite good. As I said earlier. Then at number 3, we have Siege of Orgrimmar. Mechanically, I think the bosses are really fun. They are easy enough until the last few, but still, I think they are really damn fun. Another element of Siege of Orgrimmar is that as an Alliance player, it was really cool to go into Orgrimmar, and I think the whole underground base thing they did for Garrosh was pretty damn cool. Then we have Ulduar. I talked about Ulduar a lot in this video, and you pretty much know why. I love the place. Great lore. Great mechanics, great bosses, it's all memorable, and I just loved it all. And then finally, at number 1, you probably know what this is, it's Icecrown Citadel. I loved the aesthetic, I loved the story, and I really enjoyed the fight mechanics. And this was also one of the first raids that I was really heavily involved with. Ulduar, yeah, I did raid it a bit, but not a great deal. I actually only fully completed Ulduar after I completed Icecrown Citadel, and I think the most sad thing for me about Icecrown is that I was actually on holidays when the team killed Lich King, and just through events and the fact that it did end up taking us quite a while to get to Lich King, things kind of slowed down, and I only got to kill the Lich King at the very end of the expansion. When it was completely just outgeared and that sort of thing, so that was a little bit unfortunate, but yeah, still, overall, I love the place, and don't worry, of the, I think it was 100 attempts, or 86 or something like that, attempts that it took to kill the Lich King, I was there for a solid half of them, so I do know the fight. Anyway, love the aesthetic, love everything about it, great place, and that is it for the video. So, leave your top 5s in the comments, leave what you think. I am just one person, I'm one idiot in the internet, so there's a lot more of you than there is of me, and it would be really cool to hear what people's top 10s are. Hell, at some point I might do, for these longer, more discussion type videos, I might actually do a feedback follow-up video. I think that could be kind of cool, because it would give people a bit of, you can respond to my sort of talk, and then we can actually have a discussion from me to you, and between everyone, so that would be nice. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching. If you want these big videos to continue, please do thumbs it up, because they take a lot of work, and I just kind of need to justify it. I know that sounds really whorish, but whatever. And, yeah, I'll see you next time.